I didn't apply for a loan, and I definitely didn't sign a $180,000 funding request. That was the moment I realized something was very, very wrong. My name is Marley, and up until last week, I thought I had a pretty standard life. I'm 27, a finance officer at a nonprofit focused on housing development. It's a modest job, but I love what I do. I believe in it. We help families find affordable homes, manage grants, and fight corruption in the system. Funny how I never saw it creeping into my own home. The nonprofit I work for was started by my mom, Lorraine. She built it from the ground up. At least, that's what I used to believe. People in the industry respect her. She's charismatic, sharp, and knows how to talk circles around anyone. Growing up, I watched her speak at city councils, lead community drives, win awards. I wanted to be just like her. So when I graduated with my master's in public finance, I didn't hesitate to join the team. It felt like carrying the torch. And for the first few years, it was everything I hoped for. I worked long nights, pored over reports, even helped automate parts of our budgeting system. I wasn't just a name on a spreadsheet. I was part of something meaningful. Until Monday morning. I got a call from internal compliance while I was making coffee in the break room. Nothing strange, just a request to meet in the conference room. No big deal. But the moment I stepped in and saw the printed forms spread across the table, my stomach dropped. They showed me a loan application submitted to the State Housing Authority, under my name, complete with my employee ID, my signature, and my department's stamp. Except I had never seen it before in my life. It was for $180,000. A restricted grant meant to be used exclusively for relocation support to underserved families. That's not just a mistake. That's fraud. I laughed nervously, thinking it had to be a clerical error. Maybe someone pasted the wrong name. Maybe it was a form template that auto-filled. But then they pulled up the timestamp, the login credentials, the IP address, all traced back to our headquarters. I didn't sign this, I said, my voice trembling. I've never even handled this kind of grant. One of the auditors leaned in. Marley, your mother authorized this transfer. I couldn't breathe for a second. I stared at the documents again. The signature wasn't mine, not really. It looked like mine, yes, but I would never abbreviate my last name like that. My hands started to shake. I asked to speak with Lorraine. They told me she wasn't available, that I'd been placed on immediate administrative leave until they finished the internal review. That's how I found myself sitting in my car, keys in the ignition, engine off, for nearly an hour, just staring at the windshield. My own mother had used my name to move money under false pretenses. I couldn't understand why. She didn't need to. She had authority. She had staff. Why me? I wanted to believe there was an explanation, a reason. Maybe someone forged her name too. Maybe it was some elaborate scam from the outside. But deep down, I already knew. That night, I logged into our secure accounting system remotely. I wasn't supposed to, I knew that, but I needed to see it for myself. I filtered the funding requests by department, then by login history. Lorraine's name was on over a dozen unauthorized submissions, but only one name was used consistently on the recipient end. Mine. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A recent login from her account, just days ago, into my email archive. Someone had accessed a locked folder I hadn't touched in years. It held digital copies of old forms, past grant templates, even PDF versions of my signature from prior projects. She hadn't just faked one document. She had planned this, copied, stored, built a library, and used me. I sat there in silence. Betrayal doesn't come like a slap. It's slower than that, like water rising in a locked room. But the next morning, I got a text. From an old coworker, someone who left 6 months ago without a word. All she said was, "Check the relocation reports." Page 3. You're not the first. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at that one message. Check the relocation reports. Page 3. You're not the first. I didn't even have to wonder who she meant by she. There was only one person who had access to every layer of our nonprofit. Lorraine, my mother, my boss. By sunrise, I was already dressed, laptop open, logged into our restricted database. My access should have been frozen, but apparently no one had bothered to shut the door all the way. I clicked through the grant cycles one by one, my hands cold even though the room was warm. Page 3 of the relocation reports listed recipient IDs, invoice numbers, and project leads. It was dry stuff, but something stood out immediately. There were over 9 accounts marked under my name. I had only ever officially led 3 relocation projects. The rest, fake, fabricated. One of them had over $200,000 marked dispersed. I scrolled further, and then I saw her name. Not as the sign-off, but as the internal project creator. The same email that was used to log into my folders. The same credentials that had downloaded my old signature and reused it again and again. Lorraine had taken federal money meant to support vulnerable families and laundered it through her own daughter. And she hadn't just done it once. She'd made a pattern out of it. I felt sick, physically ill. Not just because of the betrayal, but because I realized how easily it could have destroyed me. One external audit, one miscommunication with the State Department, and it would have been my name on the investigation list. My name on the fraud charges. Not hers. She'd have sat there smiling while I was hauled in as the fall guy. That was when the fear started to fade, and rage took its place. At noon, I got a call. It was from HR. Not from the audit team, not from legal. HR. Hi, Marley. We've received some concerns from senior leadership about your behavior this week. There are worries you might be experiencing a mental health episode. I almost dropped the phone. They didn't want to talk about the fake documents, or the login abuse, or the missing funds. No, they wanted to label me, discredit me, make me look unstable. She was getting ahead of the story. My voice cracked slightly, but I kept it calm. I'd like to make a formal report of identity fraud. I have documentation. There was a long pause on the other end. Then, I'm afraid that's outside of HR's scope, Marley. You'll need to speak with legal. And legal told me to go to HR, I said. So which one of you handles stolen credentials and forged government documents? The line went dead. That was it. I was officially being pushed out. I called Everett. He used to be the director of finance before Lorraine restructured his entire department and replaced him with someone more agreeable. He left quietly, but I'd always suspected he knew more than he let on. When I told him everything, there was no surprise in his voice. Just a low sigh, followed by one sentence. You need to trigger an independent audit. But how? You've got the documentation. The state has a compliance tip line. They're required by law to follow up. I'll get blacklisted, I whispered. Everett was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Maybe, but if you don't do this, she'll bury you. So I did it. I packaged everything. The PDF signatures, the grant cycles, the login logs, even the message from the coworker who warned me. I filed it anonymously, or at least as anonymously as I could. The confirmation email came 2 hours later. The audit had been initiated. That night, Lorraine knocked on my apartment door. Not called, not texted, just showed up. She stood there with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. I heard you've been snooping through reports, she said softly. My throat dried. You forged my name. She stepped inside without being invited. You have no idea what you've just done. I know exactly what I've done, I said, stepping back. She walked past me, calm as ever, like she owned the place. Then she leaned in close and whispered, I built this entire foundation. Don't think for a second I'll let you tear it down. I stared at her. This wasn't a warning, it was a threat. And just as she reached for the door to leave, her phone buzzed. She checked the screen. Her face went pale. Then she looked at me. You called the state. I didn't answer. She stepped closer, her eyes burning. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I met her gaze and said, Neither do you. I didn't leave my apartment for 2 days after that. Every knock on the door, every buzz from my phone made my chest tighten. I kept the curtains shut. I unplugged the landline. I didn't want to see anyone, especially not her. Lorraine. The woman who raised me. The woman who taught me right from wrong. The same woman who forged my name to embezzle hundreds of thousands in public funds, then stood in my doorway and threatened me like I was a stranger. I thought I knew what betrayal felt like before. This was something else. But it wasn't just personal anymore. This was criminal. On the third morning, I forced myself to go outside. I had to breathe. I walked to a nearby cafe, ordered black coffee, and sat in the corner with my laptop. I needed to know if the audit had moved forward. I logged into the state compliance portal using the confirmation number from my anonymous report. Status: escalated to Investigations Division. Assigned Agent T. Delaney. My fingers froze over the trackpad. That was fast. Escalation usually took weeks. Someone must have taken one look at the documents I submitted and realized this wasn't just a minor accounting slip-up. My heart raced with something that felt like hope, but also fear. Because once this started, there was no going back. I checked my inbox. Nothing from the state, nothing from Lorraine. But one message caught my eye. It was from an old colleague, Samir, someone who used to work in logistics before Lorraine downsized his department. Subject line: "You need to see this." Attached was a photo, a scanned copy of a printed spreadsheet. It was titled, Relocation Disbursements, Q4 Internal Summary. And right there, buried on line 64, was a payment sent to a dummy LLC, created just 3 months ago. Registered owner, Marley Daniels. My name. Again. Only I had never heard of this company, never authorized it, never signed anything. Samir had added a note. Check who submitted the vendor approval form. I opened the vendor registration list in our internal server and traced it. The account that created it belonged to Lorraine's new executive assistant, Claire, a woman I had never worked with directly. My stomach twisted. Claire had full access to Lorraine's calendar, her approvals, her private emails. She was the one who had submitted the form, but the signature, again, was mine. I ran the metadata on the PDF. There it was, edited on Lorraine's home computer. It wasn't just that my mother had used my name once. She had created an entire shell company in my name to launder money, and now she was using her assistant to help hide it. It was systematic, calculated, and it was still happening. I knew what I had to do. That afternoon, I reached out to Agent Delaney directly. I explained everything. I sent them the new evidence, the vendor form, the metadata, the spreadsheet. Within minutes, they responded. Thank you for the additional documentation. Please be available for a formal statement by Thursday. That gave me 2 days. 2 days to prepare. 2 days for Lorraine to do something reckless. And I was right. Because that night, I got a call from Claire. She sounded shaken. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Marley, listen. I'm not part of this. I didn't know what she was doing at first. She said you approved the vendors. I just uploaded the paperwork. My hands clenched around the phone. And now? Claire hesitated. Now she's asking me to delete files, to wipe everything connected to your name before the auditors come. I closed my eyes. She said if I didn't help, she'd ruin me, Claire added. She said she'd pin all of it on me and you. What are you going to do? I asked. There was a long pause. I'm sending you something. Check your email in 5 minutes. But Marley. Yeah? She's planning to move the funds, all of it, tomorrow morning. The call ended. I ran to my laptop and refreshed my inbox. There it was. A zipped folder titled Backups for Protection. Inside were 5 voice recordings. Each one was time-stamped. Each one captured inside Lorraine's office. I clicked the most recent one. It played, and I heard my mother's voice say, if the audit lands, Marley's going down first. That's what she gets for trying to turn on me. I stared at the screen, breath caught in my throat. She was ready to sacrifice me, fully, publicly. But now, I had her voice. I had her plan. And in less than 24 hours, I was going to bury it all. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because I didn't want to. I was done feeling powerless, done letting Lorraine call the shots. Today, it was my move. I got dressed in silence. Black blazer, neutral makeup, hair pulled back. I looked like I belonged at the front of a press conference, not behind a desk. And that was the point. Before heading out, I made 3 secure uploads, one to the state audit portal, one to my encrypted cloud drive, and one to a private legal contact Everett had introduced me to. Each contained the folder Claire sent me, the vendor forms, the metadata, and most importantly, the voice recordings. There was no turning back now. At 9 a.m., I walked through the front doors of the nonprofit's headquarters like I'd never left. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. A few people looked shocked. Others avoided my eyes completely. The tension was so thick, it felt like I was walking underwater. Lorraine's office was at the end of the hall. Her door was open. She was sitting at her desk, sipping from a porcelain mug like it was any other day. When she saw me, she didn't flinch. "You're not supposed to be here," she said calmly. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me. "I know what you're planning," I said. She didn't deny it, just raised an eyebrow. "I heard everything. You said I'd go down first, that this was all on me." A small smile tugged at the corner of her lips. "It is all on you. Your name is on every document, every signature, every grant I didn't blink. And every audio file," I replied. Her smile froze. "I have your voice," I continued, "on record. Admitting everything, planning to frame me, and instructing Claire to wipe the data before the audit team arrives." That was the first time I saw her mask slip. Just for a second. Her grip tightened around the mug. Then she stood, slowly, calculating. "You're bluffing," she said. "I uploaded it to the audit team. This morning, time-stamped, verified, and backed up in 3 places." Lorraine's jaw clenched. She looked at me like I was a stranger. "I gave you everything, Marley," she spat. "A job, a future, a name people respect." "No," I said softly. "You gave me a target, and then you aimed the gun." At that exact moment, a knock came at the door. Agent Delaney stepped inside. Behind him were 2 more state investigators. "Ms. Daniels," he nodded to me. "Ms. Lorraine, under state directive, we're placing a hold on all financial operations under your authority. We'll need access to your computer, devices, and files." Lorraine froze. Her face drained of color. "I suggest you comply," I added, "or this gets worse." Delaney handed her a sealed folder. "You'll also need to appear for a preliminary hearing regarding misuse of federal funds and falsified identity." She didn't say a word. She sat down slowly, like her knees couldn't hold her weight. The woman who once walked into rooms like she owned them now looked like a cornered fox. As they began accessing her system, I stepped outside. My heart was racing. My hands were still trembling. But inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. Justice was finally moving. That afternoon, I was asked to join the compliance team in the boardroom. The executive committee was there. So was Everett. So was Samir. And Claire, who sat beside me like she still couldn't believe this was happening. Delaney cleared his throat. "We've found substantial evidence of fund misappropriation, signature forgery, and fraudulent vendor creation. But that's not all." He clicked a file on the screen. And then came the twist. "There's evidence that Lorraine has been running a secondary set of books, outside of the organization. She wasn't just funneling money through your name, Marley. She was also moving it into an offshore account, under your social security number." I felt the room spin. "What?" I said, almost breathless. Everett looked stunned. "She was laundering money through you, across borders." Delaney nodded. "Had you not submitted that folder, Marley, You would have been held liable for felony-level financial crimes across 3 jurisdictions. Everything in me went cold. All this time, I thought she was protecting herself. But no. Lorraine had built an entire exit plan using my identity. If I hadn't spoken up, I would have gone down for all of it. I sat in silence after Agent Delaney said the words. 3 jurisdictions, all under your name. It felt like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. No one spoke for a few seconds. Claire's face went pale. Everett stared at the screen like it was lying, but it wasn't. My mother had been setting me up to take the fall, not just for her fraud here, but for something far bigger. Offshore laundering, international wire transfers, a clean exit plan, under my identity. She didn't plan to fight the system, she planned to leave me behind in it. Delaney continued. We've issued an immediate request for asset freezes under both Lorraine's and Marley's names, but we've flagged Marley as the identity theft victim in all formal reports. You're clear, Marley, but this could have destroyed your life. I nodded, trying to keep my breathing steady. What happens to her now? She'll be prosecuted in federal court, he said. State and federal agencies are coordinating charges, multiple counts of financial fraud, identity theft, and obstruction. She won't be walking away from this. For a moment, I didn't feel relief. I felt grief. Because no matter what she did, this was still my mother. But then, I remembered that night at my door. Her voice in those recordings. Her plan to let me burn so she could disappear clean. That wasn't a mother, that was a predator. The trial moved faster than I expected. Evidence was overwhelming. Emails, audio recordings, financial trails, metadata, testimonies. Claire and Samir both stepped forward. Even staff who had left the organization years ago came back with similar stories. Documents they were told to rephrase. Invoices that never matched. I testified on day 3. I brought everything. The signatures, the audit trail, the vendor creation. I looked her in the eye on the stand, but she wouldn't look back. By the end of the week, the verdict was in. Guilty. On all counts. Lorraine Daniels, once a respected nonprofit leader, was sentenced to 19 years in federal prison with no possibility of early parole. Her assets were seized. Her reputation? Gone. Headlines called her the mother of fraud. It was over. Except, it wasn't. Because even after justice, there's still the rebuilding. The organization nearly collapsed under the scandal. Donors pulled out. Partners hesitated, but Everett and I stepped in. Together, we restructured everything. Transparency protocols, third-party audits, leadership changes. I was offered the role of executive director, but I declined. Not yet. I needed time. Not just to rebuild the organization, but to rebuild myself. Instead, I became head of compliance, a title that once meant little, but now carried the weight of everything I had lived through. I created systems to protect whistleblowers, anonymous reporting lines, mental health support, and every single training program included one message. Integrity means doing the right thing, even when the person you're exposing is the one who raised you. A year has passed. People still ask me if I miss her, if I've forgiven her. And the truth is, I don't think I ever knew her. I knew the version she showed the world, the polished executive, the confident speaker, the award-winning founder. But behind that was a woman who believed power was hers to bend. That love was transactional. That loyalty could be weaponized. So no, I don't miss her. I don't forgive her. But I'm still here. Standing. Stronger than I've ever been. And if there's one thing I know now more than ever, it's this. No one, not even your own blood, has the right to erase you and walk away clean. Comment the number 2 if you believe justice can win, and subscribe if you want more stories like this. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Always. Thank you for listening.